Hello everybody, I'm George from Ireland, so welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm commenting on the possible forthcoming Israeli military strikes on the Iranian nuclear program. So there have been exchanges of missiles. Iran and Israel have been in an undeclared conflict since 1979, since the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Prior to that, when the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, ruled there, is a absolute monarchy. Iran had quite cordial relations with Israel and actually supplied them with oil when Arab states refused to do so. But my goodness, has it changed in the last 45 years? And now they're deadly enemies, and Iran doesn't recognize Israel. And Israel say, well, we recognized Iran before, we're not going to deny they exist now. And Netanyahu saying, all our attack on Israel on Iran could bring the fall of the regime and bring to power a government which is amenable to the recognition of Israel. But I mean, I find that hard to expect. I mean, even if the regime were to fall in Iran, that doesn't mean that the new one would recognize Israel, because Iranians have had it dinned into them for over 4 decades that Israel is the root of all evil and so on, that they're absolutely wicked and vicious and anti-Muslim and so on. So it's very hard for people to suddenly all let go of that. And you might well be lynched if you suggested recognizing Israel and betraying the Palestinians. So now Israel is going to riposte to that 180 ballistic missile strike on Israel, and the Israelis shot them down. Apparently, the Jordanians helped them. Why? Were they paid? Okay, they might be somewhat hostile to Iran, but then the majority of Jordanians are ethnically Palestinians. They're often dual citizens. You might say, we're not doing anything against a country which is trying to save Palestine. Uh, but only two Israelis were wounded in that ballistic missile attack, and one Palestinian man was killed by a bit of it falling. You shoot down the missiles, okay, so that prevents it impacting on the target or whatever, but there's still debris, red hot metal, razor sharp sometimes falling in places, and that can still kill people. But obviously, there's not the big explosion on the ground or just above whatever building. So the two possibilities are for Israel to go for Iranian oil installations. They've only one refinery port where they export it, or to go for the nuclear program. And President Joe Biden said, "Will you please go for oil in that case?" To just wreck their economy. Now, the Iranian economy has struggled for decades under sanctions briefly lifted under Obama, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which Trump extended twice and then suddenly ended, despite having previously said it was the worst deal in history. Complete illogicality, completely contradicting himself. Despite the United Nations and the United States itself saying the Iranians were sticking to the deal with scrupulosity. So it's bad faith by the United States, and it left Iran with the moral high ground. Um, but if you do that, that will have a bit of a spike in global oil prices, wrecking their oil industry. Because, okay, the United States doesn't purchase Iranian oil, but others do. There's only so much oil on the market, um, right? And demand for that is, well, I suppose, is inelastic. It's not going to go down very much as the population's going up, usage is going up. Switching to green energy is not going up as fast as energy usage in general. Um, okay, but the Iranians said, well, then we might strike Saudi Arabian oil facilities to take out so much of the world's capacity to send the world price shooting up and so on. Or the other possibility is to hit Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, for over 50 years, Iran has been trying to develop nuclear energy, and they've said that, and they do have some nuclear energy. And this goes back to the time of the Shah. Now, the late Robert Fisk, a man who I loathed but had some unwilling respect for, wasn't always wrong, said people are always saying that Iran's got this nuclear weapons program. The first part of this was broken off and thrown away. It was the Shah started that. And the CIA even assessed in 1974 that within 10 years, Iran may well have a nuclear weapon. Um, but Israel's been saying this since about 1990, that Israel has always been saying Iran is about to get a nuclear weapon, about to, which never ever happened after 34 years. So Tel Aviv has been the boy who cried wolf. Why should we believe them now when they've lied and lied and lied? And about 10 years ago, there was even Netanyahu in the United Nations with his chart, 5 minutes to midnight, Iran's about to get a nuclear bomb, and it still hasn't happened. So why should we believe a government which lies so much? Israel in the 1980s spying on the United States, caught and denied it, and lied and lied and lied and admitted that they did. They've lied and lied and lied so much about crimes they've committed against civilians in Gaza, and eventually been forced to fess up, and so forth. They've lied and lied and lied about having nuclear weapons. Shimon Peres in the 1980s saying Israel would not introduce them to the Middle East. Israel already had introduced them to the Middle East. He knew that. Israel had been working in them since the day of their foundation, and they had them from the late 70s, certainly. Um, so Israel's refused to sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which Iran has, agreeing that it will never try to obtain them. So they've got they want civilian nuclear energy, which they're absolutely entitled to, and to have more of their oil or export for oil and gas. Oil and gas for export. There is a way to turn civilian nuclear energy into nuclear arms. Are they trying to do that? Now, Israel's been assassinating Iranian nuclear scientists. Is that murder? Surely that's deliberately killing somebody unlawfully. Israel doesn't have a legal right to kill a scientist in Iran. Does Iran have the legal right to kill scientists in Israel? So Israel's a rogue state. Anyway, Israel's got nuclear weapons. That's a threat to Iran and to all its neighbors. So why should Iran not be able to defend itself? How come Israel's allowed them and Iran is not? Is one rule for one country and another for another? Make your mind up. If nuclear weapons are so unacceptable, the Israelis should get rid of them themselves. Anyway, so they may well strike the nuclear weapons program if there is one. Okay. And if not, they'll be striking civilian nuclear energy, surely an illegitimate target. But if there were to be a nuclear weapons program, this, if not, it didn't destroy it, would retard it. It would set it back decades, destroying a lot of the equipment, the heavy water, the uranium, and killing a lot of the scientists. And who'd want to be a nuclear scientist when you know you're in danger? Now, the Iranians have buried these things very deep underground. They distribute them all over the country, mostly in the east of the country, and they're, the extreme range for Israeli missiles and the Air Force. And the Israeli Air Force had to fly over Jordanian and Iraqi airspace. The Jordanians, I mean, dare not intervene. They don't have much military strength. They're very threatened by Israel over Iraq. Now, Iraq has a very cordial relationship with Iran, rather reliant on Iran. That's one of the really positive things to come out of the liberation of Iraq in 2003. No more war between those two, no more million dead. But Iraq is not a wealthy country and doesn't have much air defense to shoot these things down. There used to be talk years ago of Israel doing a joint strike with the Saudi Arabians. Though they were at daggers drawn, they both agreed they would not allow the Persians to have nuclear weapons. But if they did that, would the Iranians be able to develop really dirty bombs just to bring in a suitcase to Israel, something like that? Would they hit Gulf Arab oil installations anyway to send, global energy markets reeling? What will they do? I reckon the Israelis will go for the Iranian nuclear program because Joe Biden has counseled restraint and Netanyahu has slapped him in the face every single time. He's crossed every single red line the United States set. So this shows who's really in charge. The USA gives money to Israel for free, already rich country, billions of dollars a year. They sell their most sophisticated weapons to Israel, intelligence sharing. They wield the United Nations Security Council veto in favor of Israel again and again and again, and they get kicked in the balls and they say, "Thank you, sir." So it's staggering. And this will really anger the Muslim world, some of America's Arab allies, and so on. And it'll set a dangerous precedent. Putin say, well, if America's ally uses nukes, did this bombing in Iran, I can do things in Ukraine, which I wasn't doing previously, and they do this permission the Americans and. But from an Israeli perspective, this is a golden opportunity. They've crossed red lines and got away with it. So the gloves are off now. They've really wrecked Hezbollah, and they've almost annihilated Hamas and so on. The Iranians don't seem to be able to retaliate. Their ballistic missiles are shot down. What can they do? So it can't make things worse. It makes things better. Netanyahu would restore his reputation as security, and he thinks make sure that there's no chance that Iran would ever develop a nuclear weapon. So I reckon they'll go for it. They say, well, damage relations with Biden, it doesn't matter. Biden's going to be gone in 3 months. So Trump might well come, he'll forgive them. Harris will have to build some sort of relationship with Israel if she's elected president. So that's my forecast. Thank you for watching the channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal. Goodbye.